Unleash your wealth with Raj Shah and Rick Borick this Saturday at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. Learn more at scwealthadvisors.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. On Friday night, during his interview with Clinton Foundation donor Zero, the big guy was asked about submitting to an independent medical evaluation, cognitive test, or some other independent medical evaluation that would speak to his cognitive capacity at present. And this is how that exchange went.
Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I had, I've been at Walter Reed for my physicals. Yes, the answer is.
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
No one said I had to. No one said, they said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do. Not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right.
He's running the world. He created NATO. Yeah. Okay.
He does it all.
Last week, we spoke with Stephen Bucci about this being a national security issue, the president's capacity, the commander-in-chief's capacity. And one wonders at this point, particularly with members of his own party calling for him to step aside, where are his cabinet secretaries, particularly those with national security responsibilities, to speak to their confidence in the commander-in-chief? Do we have a Captain Queeg situation, I guess is my question. For more on this, we're going to put that to our friend Stephen Bucci, who we talked to last week about this very topic. Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. He is a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies at present. Stephen, a Captain Queeg situation, does somebody have to say something about the chief?
Well, really the president, with regard to his cabinet officers, is kind of in a Captain Queeg situation all the time, even if the president is good to go. So I think expecting, Lloyd Austin or Tony Blinken to step forward and say, oh, no, the boss is losing it, we need to change things around, is a pretty long stretch. I mean, the 25th Amendment is there specifically for this case, but these guys are all serving at the pleasure of the president. That's the way the system works.
No, I get it, but they're serving the country, and the question. I mean, as I know, I don't need to lecture you about serving the country, but I guess my point is to say, whether publicly or privately, if you were DOD, if you're the DOD secretary, would you pull him aside and say, look, we have to do something to assure the troops that the commander-in-chief has his faculties? And so I'm imploring you, Mr. President, to do this independent neurological evaluation and go wherever the diagnosis leads.
I think they should. Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at it as a citizen, with some background in the subject area, 100% that's what should happen. Will it happen? I don't have any confidence whatsoever, because if you listen to Biden, talking to Stephanopoulos, he really doesn't understand how bad his capacity is. He really believes he is perfectly fine, because after all, he's had people look at him and say, yeah, boss, thumbs up, you're good to go. His wife, a person he trusts since she was, a young teenager, is telling him, "No, you're good, Joe. You're such a good boy. You answered all the questions."
Right.
Didn't
So-
say whether he answered them right or not. He just answered them all. But
Once a babysitter, always a babysitter, I guess.
I mean, so condescending.
it's just, I mean, it offended my wife as a wife, by the way, to listen to her talk to him like that. But it's, if that's his standard, that's the cocoon around him, even if a Lloyd Austin or Tony Blinken came to him and implored him, as you suggest, I don't think he would believe him. If anything, he'd probably fire him. And think, no, they don't know what they're talking about. I've got this under control. Yeah, as you said, I created NATO. I'm the one who made NATO strong.
Decade
is he talking about?
Though, if somebody like Austin came to him and said that, and he turned around and fired him, I mean, he would essentially be undermining his own ability to stay in the race. That would create a firestorm, especially if an outgoing secretary. I asked him to do this on behalf of the country. He said no. I mean, I know this is an unlikely scenario, but I'm just playing this out in terms of responsibility, because I think the American people look at this leadership class with great suspicion, as well they should, and don't see anybody that will sort of ever step up and do the right thing except as an ultimate last resort.
Yeah, and with this group, I'm not sure it even get to be a last resort. They are so enamored with holding on to power, not just Biden, but all of the people he's put around himself. And actually, I don't think he put them around himself. There's other people said, "Oh no, this is who you should put in these positions, Joe." The fact that he has people in those executive departments who, prior to doing that, were paid agents of Iran. Who does that? And then once it's revealed publicly, if you said, well, he didn't know that, who leaves them there? So Biden is not running the show here. I don't know who is. Obviously Jill is doing it right around him, but who is making the political decisions is an unknown to all of us out here in the public. But it's scary, and it's clear. He doesn't need to take a cognitive test. He is not well. The man can't walk well. He stands like somebody who has, Parkinson's or some other sort of neurological problem. It's not just his age. The policies that he has approved are so bad that, to use the thing, Ray Charles could see that it's a problem, but he thinks he's just hitting it out of the park. That's
right.
Kind of prima facie evidence that he is not all there.
Well, I mean his 36% approval rating, and I don't think we've ever seen a president get reelected with those kind of numbers. But what do you think Putin and other leaders throughout the world are making of all this?
At the very least, they're sitting there kind of chuckling and shaking their heads going, man, this is just amazing. We knew the Americans had internal issues, but we didn't think they'd go this bad. And some of them might be holding back because they can't believe it. They're thinking, God, this guy can't be this bad. They would never leave him in there. This is the thing, like the Germans did in World War II. Oh, they couldn't fire Patton. He's their best combat general. They'd never pull him out of command. This has got to be a trick. And they don't understand we do some loony things sometimes. But in this case, our system is driving us to really appear weak and feckless to our adversaries and to our allies and friends. And that is a very, very dangerous situation for the United States of America.
Before we get too full of ourselves, we have the results in from Western Europe, and it was expected that Labour was going to gain control in England, which of course happened, although with a relatively smaller percentage of the vote than in previous change elections. So it was more of a rejection of big government, quote unquote, conservatism, which wasn't conservatism, and the impact of open borders in Britain. that undermined the competence argument for conservatives. So this was expected, but it was more a function of conservatives not governing conservatively. The flip side, in France, you had essentially Macron throw in with the radical left, even more. I mean, that's sort of what does the radical left look like if Macron's not part of it? But and circumvent sort of populist, nationalist conservatives from gaining majority there. So, in other words, in both France and England, you have leftist victories.
Yeah, you're right. There is, and that's concerning, especially since it seemed like the world was moving in the opposite direction, that they had been rejecting the failed policies of the left. Unfortunately, in both cases, as you point out, the conservative side in England was weak. It wasn't a strong conservative. They definitely didn't have Margaret Thatcher in charge. And on the other end, the government that was in power with Macron is a leftist also, and he's manipulated the election cycle to drive the vote further to the left, one for his own survival, but he's got a deal with the devil, because now he's got to go with the radicals that are even further to the left than he is. So this may be not a wave back towards the radical left, but more of a dying gasp as the right sort of tunes up and people go, come on. I can't believe that the people in the UK are going to buy off on the policies that the Liberal Party want to pursue, like returning to the EU, opening up the borders even further. The French are not happy with the idea of opening their borders even to a larger degree than they have been. So are we going to see very quickly a snap back in the other direction? I don't know.
Well,
I'm not ready to buy off that the left has won and England and France are lost.
Yeah, but the problem is, how bad are things before there is a corrective action taken? So, you saw in France the radical leftists out in the streets with banners and so forth, essentially saying that the open borders policy was victorious, that right. Migrants are indelibly French, and so this will continue.
Yeah, that's what the left wants to do, but I'm not sure. It may go on for a little while, but I think you're going to see some response to that that's not going to be pretty, and may drive things back the other way. I don't know. Maybe I'm being Pollyanna, and you're correct, but I'm not quite ready to throw in the towel yet.
Did you see the celebrations? I'm looking at it right now. There's one French flag, and it's all Palestinian flags. Oh
yeah, I know. It looks like an American campus now.
Yeah, it does. That's a good analogy.
One big college campus. Now, I wanted to get something else too before we let you go, since the Heritage Foundation has been impugned. Project 2025. This is one of these boogeymen that the left is starting to erect with more frequency. Say it's not only Trump Hitler, but then Trump Hitler's battle plan is Project 2025, and that's going to be the end of our republic. This is, for example, MSNBC hysteric Joy Reid.
Y'all just tell me who the nominee is going to be. Let me know when you guys are finished fighting amongst yourselves who I got to vote for in November to keep Hitler out the White House. That's all I want to know. Who I got to vote for to keep Hitler out the White House. Y'all do your thing. Play in traffic all you want in front of these Republicans, acting a fool in front of these people instead of privately declaring your stuff. But don't text me no more, because I'm not taking no more of these texts. Just let me know when you guys are finished figuring it out, Democrats, because I know y'all the freak out people. Go ahead and freak out, have your conversation, and then let me know who I got to vote for to keep Hitler out the White House. That's it. I'm done. Oh, and by the way, if it's Biden in a coma, I'm going to vote for Biden in a coma. I don't even really particularly like the guy. A lot of his policies, don't like him. He's not Donald Trump, right? Yeah, Hitler, White House. We keeping them out, keeping Project 2025 out. That's all I care about. Up and down the ballot, from the rooter to the tutor.
Project 2025 out. That's the moral imperative, Stephen.
Yeah, it's really interesting to listen to people twist the truth. And I'm guessing probably not 1 in 100 of them have read anything of the Project 2025, any of the documents, anything it says. They just echo each other. One person says something hysterical, and then the rest of them just join in. I've seen several summaries of 2025 written by people on the left, and I'm looking at it going, you know what? That's not anything that is said in Project 2025. You know, the first thing they all say is this was the map to get Trump back in the White House and how he's going to solidify his power. Well, as President Trump said himself, he's actually had nothing to do with Project 2025. This is
it's all made up.
Yeah, that mirrors what was done prior to President Reagan being elected, where a group of conservatives got together. Back then, it was Heritage kind of operating alone. Now it's Heritage with the much wider and frankly diverse parts of the conservative movement. A lot of different folks involved in it that are put this together to enable any conservative president that came in, regardless of who it was, because they started putting this together before we even knew for sure if Trump was actually going to run. And, you know, so that's lie number one. The other lies is, oh, we're doing it just to, you know, get rid of all of our enemies. Well, you know, frankly, the last Trump administration, one of the weaknesses was their personnel policies, who they were able to bring in, how they were prepared. And this is a good faith effort, which I can't believe anybody sees it as nefarious, to train people, to prepare people, to give lists of good, qualified candidates for the multitude of jobs that need to be filled in any presidential administration. Does it have some things like get rid of the Department of Education? Yeah, it does. Heritage has been saying that for 40 years.
Right.
So that's not, you know, I mean, since about the day they created it, they've been trying to get rid of it. So there are some things like that. There are some calls to clean up the administrative state, these unelected officials that decide things outside legislation, outside court cases. That needs to be addressed and fixed, because those places are supposed to be run by people who are appointed by the President of the United States, whoever the people choose.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
now,
but it's all
that's not
scare
what's
tactics.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
this project, project
so
2025.
the bottom line is, if you don't keep Biden's personnel and his policies, then you're channeling Mein Kampf. I mean, that's basically the left's argument. One last thing before that, the new quote unquote moderate president of Iran, does that change anything? I know he's talking about being more conciliatory with the West and so on and so forth, but does that change anything in terms of the West's and America's specifically relationship with Iran?
Absolutely not. You know, calling somebody a moderate in the power structure of Iran is kind of ludicrous anyway. Is this guy a little bit more moderate than the most crazy Ayatollahs? Yeah, probably. He's theoretically a secular guy, a doctor. One thinks about Dr. Mengele when he, you know, was in charge of the health department, though. I'm not really sure about that. But no, he is not going to change anything. The president really doesn't set policies in Iran. They just execute them. And for the president, it's really more the domestic policies than anything else. The last president was the guy who was known for crushing dissent and protests. I don't think this guy's going to do anything differently. The Ayatollah, the supreme leader, is still the guy in charge, enabled by the really radical people in the IRGC Quds Force. So, nice thing to call them that. It's not going to change anything in that country or our relationship with them.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. He is a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies now. Stephen Bucci, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Talk to you guys next week.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
I'm Jim Durkin, founding partner of the Martech Group, a global market research firm based in Chicago since 1985 and a longtime customer of Signature Bank. When our business moved to our current Loop location, I recall seeing Mick O'Rourke and his 2 business partners, Brian Duncan and Kevin Vestuga, laying the foundation for Signature Bank. When Signature opened its doors in 2006, I was proud to move our accounts there and become a shareholder. Being in the consulting business, the Martech Group has a keen understanding of the value of relationships, trust, and attentiveness. Whether dealing with our U.S. practice or our international operations, Signature Bank is always there when we need them. That's why the Martech Group is proud to have Signature Bank as a valued business partner.
Signature Bank is looking for their next success story. To learn more about turning your business